I bet you've heard a lot of stories about the song Stairway to Heaven, and if you're a Led Zeppelin fan, you may have heard so many stories about the song Stairway to Heaven that you doubt there are any stories left to be told. But I have one for you right now. I'm going to tell you a story about how the famous guitar solo for Stairway to Heaven almost didn't happen. And if it weren't for the presence of a specific individual who has had a huge influence on many classic rock bands and albums, the solo may have never been recorded. And I'm going to tell you all about that in a minute. But before I do, I'd like to remind you to like and subscribe to the channel. I have new content uploading basically every day. We have a lot of fun discussions and polls going on over in our community forum. And if you look in the description box below, you'll see links to content I can't put on YouTube due to potential copyright issues. All right, now back to the unsung hero of Stairway to Heaven. So if you don't know the name Andy Johns, you need to do a little bit of catching up. Andy Johns is a record engineer and a producer who has worked with many bands such as Jethro Tull, Led Zeppelin, Eric Clapton, Free, the Rolling Stones, and Ron Wood, Bon Jovi, LA Guns, Steve Miller, Eric Johnson, and Chickenfoot. Those are just a few of the high caliber bands that Andy Johns has either worked with as a producer or as an engineer. And he happened to be a major contributor to Led Zeppelin 4, particularly in terms of the song Stairway to Heaven, and specifically again in regard to the guitar solo. So I'm gonna let Andy Johns tell you in his own words about the strange situation between him and Page that took place in the studio right before the recording of the legendary guitar solo. Here's Andy Johns.
A mental block on that. And I'm sitting there and I'm getting paranoid. I'm going, Jesus, something weird's happening here, and Pagey's getting a bit upset. And I went, you're making me really paranoid. And he went, no, you're making me paranoid. I went, no, you're making me, no, you, and it's you. So, right after that, bing, he played that solo.
All right, so there's a very funny story about a little bit of a freak out session between the two of them that took place before Page ripped out that incredible guitar solo. There's a couple other contributions that Andy Johns made to Stairway to Heaven that a lot of people are unaware of. And one of them is in the fanfare section right before the guitar solo. It was Andy Johns' idea to use the amplifiers that were used in that section and to use the overdubbing method that was used in that section. Similarly, after the solo was recorded, the way that it was mixed had a lot to do with Andy Johns, who favored slightly burying the guitar solos in the mix so that they kind of blurred past. The third thing that he contributed was keeping it extremely simple. So when Page described to Andy Johns the type of sound that he was looking for, Johns usually tried to come up with it with microphone placement, amplifier setting, or changing guitars, rather than going through a whole bunch of different techniques to produce the sound that Page was looking for. They basically did it. If you listen to interviews with Andy Johns, you can hear him talk about they basically did it with one microphone, one cabinet, different guitars, different amplifiers, depending on the track. So Andy Johns, in fact, had so much to do with Led Zeppelin 4 that he told Jimmy Page, listen, I made a huge contribution to this album. You owe me a point, meaning a royalty point, and a production credit. To which Page replied, I know I do. I'm just not going to give it to you. Which anybody that knows Page's sense of humor can realize that that is classic Jimmy Page. Of course, Andy Johns didn't need the production credit or the point from Led Zeppelin 4 to create his own legendary status. Simply being a part of a brilliant album like Led Zeppelin 4 and the other albums that he'd contributed to was enough to make him a rock legend. And if you don't know who he is, you need to go look him up right now, because you've been listening to a lot of his creative work for years without even knowing it. Oh, and by the way, he has a brother, a very famous brother, named Glenn Johns, who was also a producer for the Rolling Stones. And anyway, that's my take on this famous unsung hero from Stairway to Heaven. If you have a thought on this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please drop it in the section below. And remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.